Hi, I'm Susan Spano, and I'm sitting in my living room in New York telling stories about travel. This one has to do with a walk I took along the coast of Brittany in France. It was about 15 years ago, I think, that I found myself in a bookstore on Portobello Road in London. The store later became famous because it's where Julia Roberts met Hugh Grant in the movie Notting Hill. You remember that? Anyway, it's a wonderful cubbyhole of a place with shelves from floor to ceiling and ladders to get to the top, and most of all, books about every place you ever wanted to visit. I was standing in the section on France when I found a book called Walking the GR34 by a Mr. Alan Castle. Now, GR stands for Grande Randonnée. It's a system of long-distance footpaths in France. 25,000 miles of them in all, and they go through the most beautiful parts of the countryside. The GR34 follows the Brittany coast for 350 miles, ending in the north at the Normandy border on wide, flat Mont Saint-Michel Bay, famous, of course, for its fast, extreme tides. Victor Hugo once said that the tides move as fast on that bay as a galloping horse. Of course, we also know Mont Saint-Michel for the great medieval monastery that grew up there on an island when the tide is high, and when the tide goes out, part of the mainland again. It's a marvel of Romanesque and Gothic art begun 10 years before the Norman conquest. And at the bottom of the Grande Rue there is a restaurant called La Mère Poularde, which is famous throughout France for its incredibly frothy omelets made on a wood-fired stove. I had been standing in that bookstore so long that I finally figured out I had to buy the book. And instead of doing what I'd intended to do that day, I went to Hyde Park and sat on a bench, and I read that book from cover to cover. Well, I guess what appealed to me, what spoke to me most, was the idea of walking out into the countryside, free, unencumbered, unafraid, with nothing but a backpack and a map or this guidebook. Now, I'm not the only traveler to have dreamed a dream like that. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Travels with a Donkey in the Cevennes, about a 130-mile trek he took around the Midi-Pyrenees in central France. That's one of the best travel books I've ever read. And in it he wrote, "The great affair is to move, to feel the needs and hitches of our life more nearly, to come down off the feather bed of civilization and find the globe granite underfoot."